All right. All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for coming to our meeting. If you don't know me, I'm Professor Schultz. I'm the faculty director of the International Relations Program. I'm joined today Dr. Aiko Takeuchi, who is our new Capstone coordinator, who's helping to develop our Capstone requirement. And then Dr. Aiko Gould is in the back there, who runs the honors program, which is also going to be part of the Capstone, and she will also be teaching some of the courses associated with this. So we're excited to roll out this new feature of the IR program. If you don't know, it's part of a university-wide initiative that all majors will have a robust capstone experience beyond just the honors thesis. And it becomes, it is a requirement that it comes into effect for people graduating next year. So for today's juniors, are you all juniors? Anyone not a junior? You're not. Okay, excellent. But we wanted to kind of start rolling it out now so that it's on your radar screen for next year. And also because we think that it'll be a better experience for you if you start thinking about it sooner rather than later. That is, some advanced planning can really help. And we'll talk about some of the ways in which you might start thinking now about what you would like to do in the future. We're also really interested in hearing your questions because we are still developing this. It's still a work in progress, and we probably have not even anticipated all of the questions that you might have. And so it would be useful for us to hear what's on your mind. And you may actually ask me some questions. So let me go into what the capstone is and its objectives. So the primary objective of the capstone, and the reason why the university wants majors to have them, is that for pedagogical reasons, there's strong evidence that it's a great way to cap off one's undergraduate experience, is an opportunity to reflect on what you've learned, to apply the knowledge that you've learned, and to integrate things that you've learned during your time here and some of the experiences that you've had here into some kind of culminating project. We already do, some students already do this in the form of a senior thesis, but the idea is to expand this to every student. And so then the second thing is that under the aegis of this capstone requirement, you'll be developing a project that you have a lot of leeway to think about what that project will be, that will suit whatever your interests are and play up on whatever skills you'd like to use. And have some kind of a tangible takeaway from your experience here. And then in addition, the hope is that because you're all seniors are going to be doing this, and it's going to be happening under a variety of different classes, that there'll be a kind of a cohort experience with your fellow seniors, come back together, you're working mostly on individual projects, but doing it in a group context and showing it, presenting it, and sharing ideas with one another. So those are kind of what we're hoping to achieve through the capstone. What we've developed is a menu of options for completing the capstone requirement. We're hoping that by giving a menu of options, you'll find something that really appeals to you. And even within some of these options, there's a great deal of freedom in order to choose what you're going to do. So one way to complete the capstone is to do an honors thesis. You can either do that through the IR honors program or through one of the interdisciplinary honors programs, like CSAC or CDDRL or Ethics in Society. So there's any of our honors programs, and that will check this box for you. But we also, in addition, have a bunch of non-honors options. So the second option here is what we're calling a capstone paper. And so this is if what you'd like to do is to write an original research paper, but don't feel like you want to do the kind of year-long honors thesis. This would be the context in which you could do that. And our vision for this is that you might take some paper or some project that you had done for a class, and during the course of a class that we'll offer in your senior year, convert it into a new original longer research paper. You might come in with a brand new idea that's a little harder to convert into a full research paper in the context of a quarter. So the idea is to build on something, move it into some way that creates a new research paper. The third option is what we're calling a capstone project, and we'll talk a little bit more about what some options for this. But this is going to be a much more flexible framework where you're going to self-design some kind of a project that could take a variety of different forms depending on what your interests are. And we will provide some courses during the senior year which enable you to kind of work on the design and then the completion of that project. And then the fourth option is what we're calling the policy practicum. And what this is that we have a course in which we have a partner organization, a non-governmental organization that you're going to partner with, and the students in the course are going to assist that partner organization with some projects that they're working on. And as part of that, do research and writing and present their findings to this organization. At the moment, unfortunately, we're limited in our how many of these we can offer and how many students will be able to accommodate in this. It's the kind of thing that we hope that we're going to build support in the university to expand offerings if there's a lot of demand for the policy practicum. But for now, enrollment's going to be limited if we can take about 10 to 12 students in the policy practicum course. So this is the menu of options for completing the capstone. And then just to kind of to get you thinking about this, how this is going to play out over your junior and senior year, I have a kind of a figure here, which kind of how to start thinking about it. So this year, most of you are juniors here. The main thing you should be doing now is starting to think about which of these options appeals to you, which ones you might choose. Dr. Takeuchi is available to meet with you, and I would strongly recommend that you do meet with her to talk about, bounce off ideas, what you're thinking, what ideas you might have. And at the same time, because many students go overseas in their junior year, or you have internship in the summer after your junior year, this is a time you could be thinking about how you're going to integrate those experiences into the capstone. So just as for example, as we'll show you some examples later, maybe what you'd like to do is a short documentary film that covers some issue that you care about. Well, if you had an idea that connected to your overseas experience while you're overseas, you could do some of the filming there. Once you're back, it's a lot harder to do that. All right, so this is where kind of thinking ahead of time, is there something I could do while I'm overseas that could collect that moment and then work into my capstone, is something you could be thinking about now. Similarly with internships. The other thing that's going to happen in winter quarter is when you have the option to apply for honors programs, and also we will have an application for the policy practicum class because of the limited enrollment. So we will let you know in the winter. You'll know in the winter if you get into honors or the policy practicum, if those options of interest you. And then, of course, if you do start an honors program, some of those start in the spring of your junior year. Then in the senior year, the track that which track you're on determines which of these rows you're going to be in. So if you're doing an honors thesis, you're going to spend your whole year doing that. We envision offering the capstone paper class in the winter quarter. Although there's a little asterisk here which says maybe some of this timing may still be determined. This is kind of our best bet right now, but what's going to happen is that capstone paper class, we're going to take some prior work and transform it into an original research paper. If you're going to do the project, that's going to start in the fall quarter with a 3-unit class that's going to be helping you design your project. And we're also hoping to, as part of that class, have some skills workshops that might help teach you some of the skills that might be useful for the project. And then as thereafter, you'll be kind of doing individual work on finishing up that project over the course of the year. The policy practicum, again, our expectation is that'll be offered in the fall for students who get into that. So that's kind of the expectation here. So you'll notice that all of these options, other than the honors thesis, have 5 units of coursework. Our expectation is that those 5 units don't count towards this kind of the 70 of your, so the core and the specializations remain intact. And then you have these 5 units as your capstone units. All right, I'm going to pass the baton over to Dr. Takeuchi. The project is the part of this which is, in some sense, the most flexible, and so we wanted to start giving you some ideas to kind of get you thinking about what you might be doing.
All right, so this is this is something new starting in our program, but across the university, there has been capstone projects. So based on some of the examples from other programs and departments, this is some like just examples that you might, or mostly in terms of the outlet and formats that you could use in your project. For example, a podcast, maybe not a single podcast, but maybe a series of podcasts where you could use sound bites or bring experts to interview and then make it a series about this topic that you're working on. As Dr. Schultz said, like earlier, you could, if you want to incorporate more of the visuals component, then maybe you could make a documentary, but also make sure that you know how to do it and you have the resources to do so. Like we said, we would really encourage you to use your experience overseas or your internship. And one way to do this may be, for example, creating an education website with the community group or NGO that you work with, or make a booklet, something that you will be able to disseminate to the wider public. Maybe you could do it by yourself, but having a partnership will definitely help you. And if you want to go more on the academic side, but not necessarily doing it in the form of a traditional paper or thesis, maybe you can consider writing a feature article or a commentary that you could have it published on an academic journal. You probably will need the help of a faculty advisor to do this, or you could publish a collection of op-eds or shorter essays in more of the other public media outlets, or some academic blogs, for example. And if you also want to use your creative skills, you may do an art exhibit or use alternative media, or you could combine your photography skills with your academic background, or you could use your creative writing and also combine that with what you learned in the program. If you're more on the tech side, you may, for example, develop a mobile app. For example, I saw a project in another program where the student will partner up with a company. In this case, it was with some cosmetic companies to develop an app where targeting consumers to sort of use refillable bottles for the purpose of sustainability and sort of offering rewards for using the app. That's an example from another program, but definitely you could think of something that's more geared towards the a topic in IR. Or you can use other forms of AI or machine learning. For example, I saw a project about analyzing political discourses on the media and newspapers using a vast amount of data and using machine learning to do so. So these are just some ideas, and I'm sure with your creative minds and all the experiences that you will have, like you will have endless possibilities. All right, so what you can do now, well, first of all, you can talk to me. You don't have to have any like concrete idea, or you can just, use me as a way to sort of brainstorm your ideas, or just toss all the plans that you might have. I would really encourage you to do so. You can set up an appointment with me through Calendly. And like I said, you don't necessarily have to have a clear idea at this point, but you can just really come to me so that I know that you are at least thinking and planning ahead. And like as Dr. Schultz said, we really want to have you use your overseas study or internship experiences. So think about how you can use those experiences towards the capstone. And then not just those outside experiences, but also here on campus, think about the courses that you might want to take, because there are many, for example, like service learning courses or community engagement courses, or maybe skill courses for web development. You can search for those courses and see whether you can use it towards the capstone project that you have in mind. And we also actually have this piloting policy practicum course in the winter. This is in principle for targeting seniors, but if we do have enough space, juniors could also take this course. So if you're interested, you might consider taking this. Dr. Good will be teaching this course, so if you have questions about this, you can ask her. And finally, this is, we are still in the development stage, so we will continue making new decisions and like deadlines. And so we will continue to make announcements and communications. So please keep an eye on them. All right, that will be all.
Flip to the next slide.
Oh.
Question. So yeah, all right, thank you. So yeah, that is all we had prepared to kind of give you a sense of what we're thinking. And so now we'd love to hear what your questions are and what you're thinking. Yeah.
I'm wondering how the capstones are evaluated. Is it like the grade that we get in the class, or is it like you have a pass fail, like you get the capstone? Like how does that work?
So the courses will be graded, yeah. And the kind of the usual rule of you need a C or better in order for it to be considered a pass. Are hoping that that won't be an issue. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm thinking of doing like an honors in the arts, but like that might be the thing that I want to do for my capstone, so I don't know like how much I know about that.
Just so I understand, I mean, you're an honors in arts.
Oh, no, I am mixed, but
Yeah.
In the arts program, but like if I do that, I'll be doing like
Yeah.
but that at the same time, like I can not choose to not do that and use that in my capstone.
He wasn't here. I see. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We will count honors taken in other programs. And so you can do an honors in arts, and that will count. That will check our box for our capstone. What you couldn't do, and why I was going to wanted, like if you're double majoring and you have to do you're doing an honors thesis for another major, you can't count that also towards us. But if you're doing one of these interdisciplinary honors theses that takes non-majors, then that's you can.
Oh, thank you so much.
Sure. Yeah.
I also want to know opinions of other than this. If you do the honors thesis, do that like encompass the capstone, or do you offer section?
No, the honors is one of the capstone options. Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to apply for an honors thesis or honors program and the policy practicum. Would there be like rank preference in one of those?
Yes, I think that'd be fine. Yeah, apply for both. If you wanted to indicate to us a preference, that would be fine. I mean, the one thing about the IR honors program I will say is, so the IR honors program, unlike say the like CSAC or CDRL, is that the IR honors program is not space limited. So there's not like a weed out application. It's there's kind of a if you meet the kind of certain requirements, then you get in. So you should, all that's to say, you can apply for both. You apply for CSAC honors, do all those if you want, and then we'll let you know what your options are. Sure.
So I have interest in going abroad in my senior fall, and so I'm curious if this would impact that.
Thank you. All right, we figured that a small number of students would go abroad in the fall. So our hope, as with the senior thesis, we deal with this all the time. We'll have a remote option for students who are like, if you wanted to do that project design class in the fall, we'll make it happen.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
My interest in going abroad would have like a strong correlation to the project, so that's what.
That's great. That's perfect. That's wonderful. Yeah. Well, we understand you all have to go abroad. We love that, and we'll accommodate that.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm. Good questions. Any others? Yeah.
So just to reiterate, like you do the capstone and not the honors thesis are the main requirements, the design and follow the design your capstone project in the fall, and then the capstone actual capstone class.
So okay. So the question is, if you don't want to do the honors, you have a choice between these other three options. So you're going to do one of them. So if you wanted try the policy practicum, if that's what you want to do, and if we have space, then you'll take that in the fall, and they'll be done. If you prefer to do the capstone paper, you'll take that class in the spring of your senior year. Winter of your senior year, you'll be done. If you want to do the project, which is that set of more flexible things to do, then you'll do this kind of fall quarter design class followed by an individual working on the project. So you'll choose one of these tracks through the capstone. That makes sense. Well, why don't we ask Dr. Gould? Actually, can I ask you to come up here because we're recording so that the mic picks up your.
Yes. So last year I offered the policy practicum as a pilot. And it was great. We worked with a partner organization called Accountability Council, which deals with environmental rights and human rights and justice and accountability in the international development space. We're going to be working with that organization again this year. It's a little bit off cycle from the way that this looks. So if you guys were interested in taking the policy practicum this year and there was space for it, I'm actually teaching it next quarter, so in the winter quarter for juniors, but then we'll be sort of reverting to teaching it in the fall, and that's just in order to kind of balance the different offerings for people in their senior year. The way that course was organized, it was a 5-unit class. I'll say I think it was a heavy 5-unit class. Students were first learned about accountability and international development. To have some base knowledge, because not everyone comes in with base knowledge. And then the projects themselves had different segments, and I'm going to try and have those segments be replicated moving forward, which is there was sort of like a data collection aspect. So this organization does its own research. It needed students to be involved in data gathering. Then there was an analysis piece, and there was a piece of writing up a policy memo for the organization. The students in last year were divided into two groups because we had two kind of self-sustaining program projects that the organization identified and I thought would work within that 10-week cycle. So moving forward, I'm actually meeting with them, as we speak, to kind of refine the projects for the winter quarter. Whether or not we'd be working with Accountability Council or another organization next year, I'm not sure yet. But we'd be working with a partner organization in order to work on projects. And this is like client-based work, right? So the idea is for the work to be useful to the organization and not just be useful to students and learning. So we're really geared, and that's the reason why I say I think it's a little bit of a heavy 5-unit, and that we want to really be able to produce work that can be useful for the organization. And I'm not sure if that answered the question.
You might want to mention that basically the students actually basically.
Oh yeah, it was a great, yes, it was, yes. So, and again, I'm not sure exactly which pieces of this will happen exactly the same way, but it was a wonderful experience, though, the class that that I taught last year with the students. The organization's has an office in San Francisco. We went up there, we met with people who work there, learned more about the organization there and the sort of early part of the quarter. And then the organization came down from when we presented the policy memos, and we had a luncheon here where several members of the organization came down in order to receive that. And the findings have since been utilized. They've sort of blasted out. They've used them in their conversations in DC with the International Development Banks. It's been really, really heartening actually to see how much that research has made an impact. So I think that was quite interesting. Yeah, I don't know if people had that question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And just to clarify how this is going to work this year, there is an application that's already out. Like you advertised this 192 class for the
We
winter.
sent the application out yet, but we will.
Oh, we haven't. Okay.
Wait, have we sent the application?
I'm not sure if we sent an email, but it is on Explore Courses. So if you find it in Explore Courses, the link is current and you can start applying.
So as we mentioned, we're going to prioritize seniors for this winter's class, but if there's space for juniors, you can take it this year. And then you would have the option of either counting it towards one of your functional specializations. It counts for a couple different functional specializations. Or with a little added reflection paper, we will let you count it towards the capstone. So there's a chance of checking off the capstone this junior year. You're the only class that is going to have that option, because in the future it'll only be seniors in that class. But since we're piloting it this year and we want to see how it goes, we will have that option. So something to consider.
I'm not sure if there are any other questions about the policy practicum or about honors. I can also answer about IR honors. Yes, you.
I'm not sure if you said this already, but what was the name of the organization?
It was called Accountability Council. And it's an organization that's actually been doing work with a number of different student groups on campus. You can look them up online if you're interested. But again, for your senior, if you're a junior, are you a junior?
Yeah.
For your senior year, it hasn't been exactly decided if we'd be working with them again for a third time or if we'd be working with another organization. But for this year, we certainly will be working with them. One of you has any questions?
I was pretty much.
Okay.
The long-term hope is that we'll have a stable of organizations that we can kind of do this with, but it's hard to build that at the beginning. So that's what we're baby steps. Other questions? Yeah.
I'll ask a question about honors.
Oh, yeah.
While you're here. Does the IR website have a repository of past successful student projects? We get a sense of what kinds of topics and structures have been effective.
It does. If you go on the IR website and you go under people, under the drop down, one of the options is honor students, and you can see honor students and the descriptions of their projects. Also, for most of them, it links to their thesis. For the last 6 years or so-ish, students have deposited their honors theses with the library by and large, unless there's some kind of security hold on them. And you can also actually look in search works, find the repository for IR honors theses, and also look at them that way. We'll have the collection of like however many there are that are sitting.
And by the way, our hope is that we're going to try to build a website around these two. Like you do a podcast, we could have a podcast section, and therefore we're going to build up a repository of capstone projects. In some ways, you guys are going to be the trailblazers, because but classes that follow you will have your example to go on. So be inspired by that. If there aren't, we have a couple of questions for you. I will say, so we were asked to develop this, and we've done a lot of work to try to. I hope you thoughtful, lots of options and things that you can do. There's lots of things that we don't know about how this is going to play out. So if you're willing, we have a couple of questions. Like the first question is, one of the things we don't know is how the capstone requirement is going to impact your thinking about an honors thesis. Like, does it make an honors thesis more attractive because it's like, well, I got to do a capstone, so I'm going to do an honors thesis? Or does the fact that there's other now capstone options make an honors thesis less attractive to you? I'm wondering if any of you have thoughts on that. Let's bring that question on. Yeah.
Well, I've been thinking about the honors thesis for a little bit now, and I think that this makes me more inclined to do it, because it's like, well, I have to do capstone anyway, I might as well get the honors.
Okay. I saw a nodding head. Was that your thinking as well?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, that's interesting. So we just have no idea like how this is going to affect, and this is going to happen all across campus, and we have no idea what it's going to do to all the different honors programs, right? Like how are more students going to be going or not? So I'm just curious. Any other thoughts? Yeah.
You actually explain the honors thesis a bit to them. Is it like, is it more flexible or sorry, is it less flexible than a capstone project in terms of like what you?
Yeah. So an honors thesis typically, I mean, do you want to take that?
Absolutely.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, the honors thesis, it's definitely less flexible than the capstone project in that you're writing a honors thesis, whereas with the capstone project, you could do an art installation, you could do a podcast, you could do all these other different kinds of formats for how you're exploring the experience. The honors thesis is also like it's an academic project where you're researching an original. You're researching a research puzzle. You are making hopefully an original contribution to the literature in order to help us answer that puzzle and that question. And so it's more of a traditional academic enterprise in that way. And the structure of the program, which we didn't talk about here, is also different, right? So you apply in the winter. In the spring for the IR honors program, there's a 3-unit class that I teach, which is really about getting your research question and research design in order. And then in the fall of your senior year, you take another 3-unit class with me, which is a WIM class, where you start writing your honors thesis, your literature review, an empirical chapter. In the winter, we have a 1-unit class where we stay together as a community and support each other as we're writing an honors thesis, which is it's a long project and it requires some support and community. And then also throughout your senior year, you are taking units with your thesis advisor. So the unit load for your honors thesis is heavier than these other things, right? These other options are all 5 units. The honors thesis is a lot more than that. That's reflective of the fact that you are working on a sustained project for longer and going presumably deeper than you are with these other options.
yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
I might add a note to that. You can possibly achieve some flexibility by going through honors, by looking at the interdisciplinary honors program. So there are 8 of them. And some of them are going to have conventional research projects similar to IR. Some of them, like honors in the arts that Helen had mentioned, might afford you more flexibility, and also topical CSRE, STS. They all have interdisciplinary honors programs that you can take. Ethics in society, you can take a look at those. I'm not sure the details of all of them, but I do know arts is certainly a bit of a different kind, could be a different kind of project.
To know about this program is that they all do have different depth.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in looking at something from a different program, some of them also have deadlines in the winter of your junior year, but some of them are earlier.
Did that fully answer your question? Yeah. Oh, just most honors theses are on the order of like 100 pages, 120 pages, maybe, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, right, I talk to the students about thinking about it like it's 5 20-page papers, but as like that's a modal response. But in actuality, we have students who write them that are more like 60 pages. So there are students that write them over 200 pages. There's really a wide variation. So, what that looks like in terms of length depends a lot on the nature of the project.
Yeah, methodology, so stuff that's very data heavy and quantitative can often be shorter because it's more compact. Things that are based on lots of historical work are going to be longer. Oh, what was question number 2? I'm supposed to ask.
There was one general question. Well, just what are you leaning towards?
Oh,
right
yeah.
now, if you had,
That's
if you
right.
had to choose.
That's right. Yeah. If you had to choose right now, we're just curious because again, we've had like no sense of what the relative demand for these different options would be. So let's just like a show of hands right now. Like, so if you had to choose, we're going to do honors thesis, capstone paper, capstone project, or the policy practicum? All right, let's see, show of hands. How many are thinking thesis? Okay. 4. I'm gonna keep it. All right, how many are thinking capstone paper? Okay, couple. How many are thinking project? All right. And then how many are interested in the practicum? Okay. Okay, cool. That's kind of what my priors were actually.
So relatedly, speaking of the project, so we're still thinking about this and how it's going to work. If you were to go the project route, would you be interested more in doing an individual project or possibly developing a group project? Both, possibly?
I think I voted for the company because you made a distinction between the capstone paper and the project.
Yeah.
So are those two?
So the capstone paper is a research paper. Like we often hear from students, like, I really love a chance to take a bite into a research project, but I don't have the ability or time to spend a whole year doing a thesis. And so this is your chance. Like if there's something you'd like to write an original research paper on, probably built on maybe some interest or something that you had in some prior class, that's your chance. The project is what we're calling is that whole kind of menu of other things. That you could do either. Yeah, I mean, if you really wanted to do both, I don't think we'd stop you, but that'd be more than you need to do.
And if you do like the project, it doesn't have to be, would it be during autumn quarter? Like, let's say you build upon something that you did for the summer.
Yeah.
Is there like a time stamp?
So the way this is structured is there's going to be a 3-unit class that's going to be offered in autumn. I think we're hoping we'll probably offer it twice in order to make sure that it works into everybody's schedules. And the idea of this design class will be in that you're going to develop your project. What are you going to do? If you come into it having collected things from prior, that's great. But the idea is to start thinking about it, to start maybe learning some skills or doing some things so that at a minimum you'll come out of the fall quarter class with a really good sense of what you're doing. And then you're going to spend winter, and again, this is where probably the final deadline will be somewhere mid-spring to finish the project, working individually with check-ins. That makes sense?
So it's 5 units total, 3 in a class that will meet in autumn quarter, 2 that you will enroll in just for units in either winter or maybe spring.
Yeah.
Maybe spring, and you would just meet check-ins individually with Dr. Takeuchi. And I might add, the ideal is that you'll be speaking to Dr. Takeuchi even before the senior year and have in mind the kind of project that you want to be working on. Start talking about how your internship over that summer might help, or the BOSP that you will have done in junior year or autumn senior year, as it were, something like that. So it doesn't have to be from start when you get in autumn quarter in that class, but you'll really get to designing and developing the project at that time, and in a group working with a cohort where you're helping each other out as well. That's the idea.
I mean, our feeling really is that this is going to be so much more rewarding to you the more kind of forethought you give it, and the kind of more, so this is what we're really trying to encourage, and why we are rolling this out now, to really get you thinking and excited about what you might be doing. Yeah.
I'm sorry, this is what you've heard before, but if we decide to study abroad in autumn quarter of next year, of our senior year, does that limit options for capstone projects and college practicum?
I think it could be problematic with the practicum, but the project design class will be able to accommodate remote students.
Okay, and then for honors thesis.
Yeah, so yes, every year we have, because you're all IR major, you all got to go overseas. A certain number of students that go overseas, either in the spring of their junior year or many fewer in the fall of their senior year. We accommodate that. Am I correct in saying that, Dr.
Yeah,
Brewer?
so I think it's more experience accommodating students who go abroad in the spring than in the fall, just to be perfectly frank with that. That students have been going abroad in the spring. I've been doing this for 10 years, for the entire time. We've had students and we've been working with them remotely. The autumn is a relatively new thing sort of since COVID that students have been going. And the one thing you should be aware of is you still are taking units. So if you go abroad, you still are taking that class with me, and you still are taking thesis units with the thesis advisor. You also, and it is a WIM class, so there's a lot of writing that you are doing. So it's not that we can't accommodate it, but you should just be aware that it's sort of more writing work in the fall to be doing while you're abroad. Thank you.
And I will say, the interdisciplinary honors programs may not be as accommodating for overseas students. This is we try to be because we require you to be. Sure. Yeah.
Does the capstone design satisfy the WIM requirement?
It does not, but the capstone paper will. Because this is not necessarily a writing thing, but this is a writing intensive course, and we will get it to satisfy WIM, as does a thesis.
The thesis autumn quarter course is a WIM course.
Do interdisciplinary theses satisfy the WIM requirement, or just the IR?
Interdisciplinary program, so it has to be an IR class. Technically speaking, and we have designated IR classes that are actually approved by our program. So it has to be an IR class that's been approved. We will make sure that, as Professor Schultz just said, that the capstone paper will be WIM approved. And we already have the autumn quarter thesis class 200B approved for the WIM. But it has not interdisciplinary, no, it cannot satisfy that.
Great. Any others? I'm happy to hang around if you have individual questions. We can stay. If there aren't other questions right now, we can call a close to this session and then just hang around. So thanks all for coming. I see some taking a picture. That's why we will make this set. You're welcome to take a picture, but we'll make this set of slides available. We have been recording this. And we'll send out a link. So if you got friends who you think, oh, you should have heard this, let them see the link. We will repeat this a couple of times because we know, so we will repeat this at this. But if you want to tell your friends, they can watch this video. Okay. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Sure.